Alright, good morning, men and women of the Night's Watch. This is Valin here with VALIN Games, ready to talk to you about the Wall event today. Now, before we get into that, I'm just going to say, no need to leave all the anger comments. Yes, I realize Women of the Night's Watch is not exactly canon, but keep in mind, killing White Walkers on your smartphone isn't either. So, we live in a modern era, people. Let's get used to it. Anyhow, bad jokes aside, we're going to talk about the Wall event. Now, this is the main weekend event that they have up so far, set up on a rotating basis, kind of like the mirror to the weekday event, which is the World Boss Challenge, which I'm going to put out a separate video on another time. The Wall event is open Saturdays and Sundays, and as you can see, it contains a whole bunch of different levels here. Now, this is only going to be my second time running it, so everything I'm talking to you about today is early game strategy, and based on the relatively small experience most of us have been able to build up, seeing as this is a pretty fresh game, but it should be enough to get you started. Anyhow, you can see that they've got these different circles, the battlement, the corridor, and the approach, each one having about 10 levels to them. They also seem to have added in these little dots in between, since the last time I played, or at least I didn't notice them previously. I'm assuming those are further levels, and the idea is you're going to be progressing to higher and higher levels each week as your characters get stronger and as you build up more and more A, B, C, and D teams. Why do I say that? Well, here's the thing with the Wall event. No heroes are allowed, at least that I've been able to find so far, and it is only going to be your soldiers fighting. But it's a battle of attrition, meaning that battle to battle, your soldiers do not regain their health, and once a soldier is dead, he can no longer fight in later levels of the wall. Now, the same thing, of course, goes for the enemies. If your entire team is killed, and you have to bring in a new team, the damage that your first team did will remain when your new team gets in there and starts fighting again. What does this mean? Well, for those of you who have been on the game a week or less and really just have powered up your first 3 or 4 soldiers, you're not going to get terribly far. That's what I did on my last run. As you can see, the progress I made up there was about level 6. The first battle, you're going to be facing enemies of level 20, so yeah, you can throw a bunch of those level 1s at them. You might as well. It's not hurting you, but it's really not going to bring down their health by very much. What you want to start doing over time is developing at least a B team, and I'm guessing probably C team as well, and perhaps even in the long run a D team, but that, of course, is a long ways off. Why do I say that? Well, let's take a look at our barracks. So what I've gone ahead and done today, so that I can hopefully give you a bit better of an in-depth look at this event, is I have built up a bit of a B team that I think is going to be able to stand up to the first couple of rounds of guys, assuming they start me back on level 1 and don't just throw me straight into battle 7 again. I'm not yet sure which way it's going to go. You're going to watch with me and find out. But anyhow, you can see I've powered up these guys all to at least level 20, so I now have 8 characters, if you include my A team here. That should hopefully be able to stand up to this a little bit. Another thing that you want to be paying attention to, I suspect, and this is going to be my first time testing it out as well, but you want to be looking at healing abilities. So if you have any units that self-heal, or if you can get any traits on some of your guys that heal others, that is going to be ideal. Now, I don't have any self-healing soldiers, but what I was able to do is I was able to go and put these unit traits on my Riverlands Wayfarer, who's part of my A team. And so hopefully we're going to see some benefit from that, because as you can see, when you have 3 of those going at the same time, you get this trait effect of, at the end of his action, heal all allies for 25% offense with health lower than 50. I'm hoping that that's going to help me out at the end. His offense isn't great, being a tank, but unfortunately on the tunes I had that did have high offense, for whatever reason these trait cards were not available. So we should hopefully see some benefit from that. I'm thinking eventually as we specialize teams for the wall, getting more of those healing traits, healing abilities on our soldiers is going to be a huge benefit. Another thing to notice before we get into the actual battles is the active buffs. So you could see here that the more you buff the wall, the more damage you're going to get. Now, on my first week, it started me off at 1,000. I retired a few, as it says, you can retire some of your more useless soldiers to the wall for increased buffs. I was able to get it up to 1,300 since it had started me off to 1,000. It has since fallen down to 700, and I have no idea why. I'm guessing that you have to regularly feed your soldiers to the wall in order to maintain the buffs. And that's going to be difficult because each ranger only gets you about 100 points. So it takes 10 soldiers for every 1,000 to get from the 1,000 to 3,000. That's going to be 20 soldiers right there. At least at the rates we're getting shards right now, that simply isn't sustainable. I'm assuming they're either going to adjust this as we go, or they're going, or hopefully later in the game, getting those crappy soldiers that you don't mind sacrificing will become easier. How do you retire? This is something that they don't make very clear. Well, if you go to your barracks here and you see this little button down in the corner that looks almost like a circular recycling symbol, this is how you retire. One of the nice things about this particular feature, by the way, is that if you have spent a huge amount of resources on a soldier that you later find is simply not worth it, you can retire him and you're going to get all those resources you spent on him back, with the exception of your bronze coins, meaning you're going to get your tomes back. You're going to get any fur, metal, or wood or linen that you spent upgrading his gear. You're going to get his traits back. You're going to get the scrolls for his abilities back. Everything. You're even going to get any insignias and badges that you spent back as well. The only thing you don't get is the bronze coins, and hey, I'm still more than willing to take that. It's a pretty rare game I've found that lets you recycle characters and returns their gear like that. So anyhow, you've heard me talk enough. Let's get into the wall event itself and see if the adjustments I've made since last week help me. First thing I want to see is when we get into the battle, whether it throws me. Well, seeing as the enemies I'm facing are at level 29, clearly it's going to throw me in at battle 6 instead of back at battle 1. So that's interesting. Your progress is going to last week to week. Alright, so here we go. It looks like we get a start by surrounding the enemy. You know, that was a mistake. I didn't want to use my A-team right off the bat. We're going to start with our really crappy soldiers here, just to bring down their points. These guys are going to be sacrifices, but I'm hoping that by losing them, I'm going to be able to make a bit of progress later on. Now, under normal circumstances, since this is a 2-day event, I might even try to boost up these guys a little bit more, but for the sake of showing you, I'm just going to go ahead and hit it all at once. This is going to not last very long, guys. My guys are going to die super fast here. We'll do a couple rounds like this, and that will be that. Here, let me put that on auto just to speed it up for you guys so you're not here forever. Yeah, and here we go. Oh. That fighter lasted even longer than I thought he would. He took a whole hit and still stood. Now, notice the damage that they did. It was tiny, but you're going to see when we get back into it that it lasts. So if those guys had a bit more gear on them, were leveled up a little bit more, it might have actually helped us. I'm not going to show you the rest of my level 1s there. They put so much pitiful damage. I just wanted to really show you that the damage will last on the enemy as well as yourself. So let's start throwing in my B team here, if the scroll bar will work. And let's see, they're all great swords, so it really doesn't matter where I put my people. Alright, well, I actually like this setup because I can still use my shield to protect my horse and my greatsword to protect my archer. So let's get started. Let me take it off auto so that it doesn't do stupid things. And let's see how my B team performs here. They're still lower level than the enemy, so I don't expect much out of them. I am going to hold off on making any attack my first turn. They're all great swords. They're not going to be able to hit me, and I want our first engagement to be with... I want my first engagement to be with the specials on. Alright, so not a whole lot of damage there. Unsurprising since they're higher level than me. I don't think these guys are going to do too much to help me, but hey, it's worth a shot. Oh, shoot, that's not my horse. Alright, so actually we may make it through a level with my B team here, which is kind of nice. In hindsight, I think I'm going to stop attacking with that shieldsman if he lives long enough. Better to just let him occupy that greatsword for as long as possible. Alright, so as you can see, even my B team, who I had leveled all up to level 20 and put the gear up to about level 20 as well, they're just not lasting here. This is going to be a long-term effort, getting B teams and C teams up to the level that you need for the wall, seeing as your progress from previous weeks holds. I'm guessing we're going to need, two or three teams all at level 50 or above to really make significant progress on the wall. So, on the bright side, this means a shorter video for you guys, and it's already getting it wrong, I know. Sorry, my dog's barking at somebody knocking at the door. But again, as you can see, our progress does hold over. So we're just going to move straight into our A team here. Let's position these guys intelligently. Actually, I like how they're at right now. So we're just going to move on. Alright, guys. So from this point forward, I'm actually recording in post. The last few minutes, I recorded the audio as I ran the missions, but from this point forward, a couple of observations that I started making midway through became apparent. Also, the fact that if I didn't switch the audio here, there would have been a lot of irrelevant chatter from me throughout the time. You'll also notice that I cut the video in several places. This is because otherwise you would have had a 45-plus minute video with a lot of non-essential stuff in there. I figured I'd save you the time and effort so I could keep this to the most helpful stuff. Anyhow, what's going on here, you'll see, is that I have now switched to my A team. And what you just saw there was the end of the last battle on the wall. And we are now moving down to the corridor. One thing that I had to cut out in order to make this work properly that you might not see is that at the corridor, in the very first level, the enemy goes back down to level 30. Now, that's not as low as level 20 they start at on the wall itself, or rather on the battlements, whatever it's called. But it still is a drop from where those first 10 levels ended. So that's something you'll want to take into account as you determine when and where to use your lower level, but still somewhat leveled teammates. One of the things you may have noticed if you were watching what was going on there is that my healing effect from that trait card on the shieldsman has now started to take place. You'll see particularly on my fighter up there in the top left-hand corner of my new setup for this battle. He's at about 50% health right now. And if you rewind a moment, you'll see that the shield that I had actually moved him to the back in that last battle so that the shieldsman could heal him up a bit because he was about to die. So that actually got another battle out of him. We are going to start rooting him around that top barrier in this one, trying to distract those guys as we go. But he is going to eventually die. He's going to be the first one on my A team gone. And what I end up discovering, as you will see, is that having a couple of level 1s or other very low-level cannon fodder can actually become a helpful distraction and save some of your better units, even at this later stage in the event. In the meanwhile, one of the nice things about that I'll point out until we get to that portion is that here in the corridor, there's actually some barriers in the way. You're starting off on opposite ends of the battlefield. Depending on how things go, it may be advantageous to kick some of those barriers out, but it does bring a bit of a different strategic element into the game, a bit more of a traditional battle that we have going on. So there we go. I guess it's probably on the next mission that that fighter dies, but it's going to be coming up quick, I promise you. Oh, one other thing that I forgot to point out, that little trail you see between the battlement and the corridor, you heard me earlier in the video noting that perhaps those were extra levels. They're not. It's just showing the path, I guess, that they theoretically take in between the two battle zones. So there are no battles in between the battlement and the corridor, and obviously that will be the case in between the corridor and the approach down the road when we eventually unlock the approach, hopefully next week. So what you see me doing here is we're just positioning that greatsword to go front and center here, soak up some of that damage in the area in between the brazier and the little spiky fence we've got going on there. So by moving him up into that center portion, he's going to stem the flow of these guys and hopefully buy a bit of extra life for my archer there. I did have them take out that spiky fence. That's because I'm going to need to get my guys around there fast. Otherwise, because I've got to get to those archers, and there's simply no other way. Because those archers, as you can see, will start picking you down fast at this point. So this is going to be about the portion where that fighter dies, and you see he's starting to sub in the horse on that next level, and starting to use the cannon fodder element of those low levels. Oh man, I'm getting it wrong all over again. The fighter continues. Oh wait, no, good. That's what I thought. Sorry guys, my memory's a little bit on the fritz. Alright, so anyhow, we take them out this battle here, and as we move into the next one, we're going to start using those super low-level guys that we really have no other use for. And they're going to run interference to help keep our more critical units alive. In this case, I'm going to choose a horseman. You'll see me switch it out in a second, don't worry. But I'm going to choose a horseman because he's the most maneuverable of my low-level units, and is going to be able to quickly move around the map, allowing me to keep those obstacles in place, while still moving that horse around quickly so that he can get in the way and save my guys down the road. So here we go. This time I've placed that shieldsman front and center, just because that greatsword is running a bit low on health. Now, both my shield and my greatsword have about the same health and defense, roughly speaking. But that greatsword is able to do much more damage because his offense is just souped the heck up, which I've not been able to do with the greatsword. With the shieldsman. So that's why I'm kind of switching them out now. You see me starting to work that horseman up and around that spiky fence. You'll see why in just a moment. He's going to be able to step in the way and save. I think it's my great sword in just a second here. Meanwhile, I'm going to use that archer there, still being covered by my melee units and the obstacles, to take out the weaker guys. So at this point, I'm taking out the brazier, because otherwise my greatsword will never be able to make his way into this battle if necessary, though we are down to one last unit here. And so you see exactly what happened there. That archer could have easily taken or very nearly taken out my greatsword, which would have been his likely target had I not moved that horseman into range. The AI typically likes to take out the lowest HP characters, given a choice. I guess the thinking being that if you can get an enemy out of the battle, so much the better. And, they're not wrong, at least in a case where that lower HP one stands a chance against you. In this case, he's so underpowered compared to my other units that he never truly posed a threat. Luckily, the AI can't recognize that, which is why units like that make such good cannon fodder. So really, even if you want to throw away some of your lowest level tunes at the beginning, I strongly suggest keeping those horsemen for as long as possible, the lowest level ones, because they're probably going to make the most useful, most maneuverable cannon fodder. So anyhow, you're not going to see me play any more battles here because I die on the next one, so at this point I'm just going to say, please remember to like and subscribe, and be safe, guys.